Welcome to the deep dive. Okay, so you know how every February 14th just explodes with red and pink everywhere?
Oh, yeah, you can't miss it.
Well, today we're really digging into that specific date, Valentine's Day. It's this massive global thing about romance.
Right, but our mission today is to, peel back the layers, look past the chocolates and the cards everyone feels they have to buy.
Exactly. We want to figure out the real story, which is, frankly, pretty weird and confusing when you start looking.
It really is, because the holiday we celebrate today, it's this strange mix of things that don't quite seem to fit together.
Totally. And the core puzzle, what our sources keep circling back to, is how did this fairly grim Christian feast day for executed martyrs?
From the 3rd century, no less.
Right. How did that morph into this giant global multi-billion-dollar industry all about romantic love?
It's wild. And what's amazing is that the historical basis for it all is, well, shaky at best. It's linked to romance. That comes almost entirely from medieval poetry, not ancient history. And the reason's everywhere. That's down to 19th century business decisions, basically.
So today we're going to tackle that persistent Roman myth, pinpoint the actual poet who kicked off the love connection.
Chaucer, spoilers.
Right? And then we'll look at how different places around the world react to it. Some of these are really surprising secret friend gifts, even government bans.
Definitely.
Okay, so let's start with the saints themselves, because just the name Valentine has a bit of an identity problem, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. Our sources are clear on this. Saint Valentine's Day isn't honoring just one person. There were multiple early Christian martyrs named Valentine.
Multiple.
Yep. And they're all traditionally linked to February 14th, mostly because that's supposedly when they were executed. The two main contenders are Valentine of Rome, who was a priest martyred around 273 AD,
Okay.
and Valentine of Tournai, a bishop martyred just a few years later, around 273 AD. Same name, similar time, similar fate. Confusing.
Right, and I found this fascinating. You can apparently go visit their pieces, like actual relics.
Yeah, if you're really committed to finding love, I guess. It's pretty strange. The locations are kind of surprising, too.
Where are they?
Well, there's a flower-adorned skull supposedly belonging to Saint Valentine in Rome in the Basilica of Santa Maria in Cosmedin.
Wait, isn't that the church with the big stone face, the mouth of truth?
That's the one. And then other relics, pieces of Saint Valentine, are claimed to be all the way over in Dublin, Ireland.
Dublin.
At the Whitefriar Street Carmelite Church. And apparently it's a really popular spot today for people hoping for a little romantic luck.
Wow. Just that detail, the scattered relics, it kind of shows how people were maybe grasping for stories, trying to connect these figures to something specific.
Exactly. That's where all the legends start piling up, trying to inject some romance into these stories of martyrdom.
So what are the main legends?
Well, the basic story that kind of evolved over time is that Valentine was thrown in prison for helping persecuted Christians during the reign of Emperor Claudius II.
Okay, helping Christians, that makes sense for a saint.
Right. And then there's the miracle story. He supposedly healed the blindness of Julia, his jailer Asterius' daughter, which naturally led to her whole family converting to Christianity.
Okay, a miracle. Still not quite romance, though. Where does the love part come in?
Ah, that's the most famous bit. The story goes that he secretly married Christian soldiers.
Secretly. Why secretly?
Because Emperor Claudius II supposedly banned soldiers from getting married. The idea was that single men made better, more focused soldiers.
Huh. So Valentine was defying the emperor for love.
That's the narrative that really stuck. It paints him as this champion of love against tyranny. Though we should probably mention, some historians think that whole marriage ban story might itself be a later invention, just another layer added to the legend.
Right, more myth-making. Okay, so what about the sign-off? The classic, your Valentine on cards. Surely that goes back to him.
You'd think so, wouldn't you? But nope, that's a much, much later addition.
Really? When?
Our sources point to the 18th century. It was an embellishment added to the story, claiming he wrote a farewell letter to the jailer's daughter, Julia, right before he was executed.
And signed it, your Valentine.
Exactly. Great story, very romantic, but almost certainly didn't happen back in the 3rd century.
Okay, so summing up, we've got a holiday named after martyrs, possibly multiple martyrs, with body parts scattered across Europe, and romantic legends mostly made up centuries later.
Pretty much sums it up.
It kind of makes sense, then, that the Catholic Church eventually decided to, well, sideline the holiday a bit.
Yeah, in 1969, they actually removed the February 14th feast day from the main universal church calendar.
Why?
Basically, due to all this historical uncertainty. The church kind of admitted that beyond his name and the fact he was buried near Rome, almost nothing concrete is known about the actual Saint Valentine.
People still celebrate it.
Oh, sure. Some traditional Catholic communities still observe it, and he's still listed in the official list of martyrs, the Roman Martyrology, but he's not a major liturgical focus anymore.
Okay, so if the Christian roots are that shaky, let's tackle the other big origin story you always hear, the one about the Romans.
Yes, Lupercalia.
Right. The idea that Valentine's Day was basically invented to replace this rowdy Roman festival.
This one just refuses to die, but let's be clear. Scholars have looked, and there is simply no evidence connecting Valentine's Day to Lupercalia. None.
So what was Lupercalia actually about then? It ran from February 5th to 15th, right?
It did, but its focus was completely different. It was all about purification, health, and fertility in a more agricultural sense, not pairing people up romantically.
But what about the lottery? I always hear about a Roman lottery where guys and girls drew names out of a jar and were coupled up for the festival or even the year.
Yeah, that lottery story is a key part of the myth, but it's based on a historical mix-up.
How so?
Well, the sources show that descriptions of that kind of matchmaking lottery first show up in writings from the 15th century.
So medieval times.
Exactly. They were describing customs associated with the medieval Valentine's Day celebrations, which did sometimes involve games of chance for choosing partners or valentines.
Okay, so the lottery was a medieval Valentine's custom. How did it get pinned on the Romans?
That happened way later, in the 18th century. Antiquarians, writers who were researching old customs, were trying to find ancient origins for the Valentine's traditions that were already popular by then.
And they just mistakenly linked the medieval lottery game back to Roman Lupercalia.
Pretty much, they kind of connected the dots incorrectly. It was like a historical game of telephone spanning centuries.
Wow. Okay, so Lupercalia is out. The martyrs aren't really about romance. The famous signature is an 18th century invention. So where did the whole love connection actually come from?
We have to thank a poet, Geoffrey Chaucer, actually.
Chaucer, like Canterbury Tales Chaucer.
The very same. The first time we see Valentine's Day explicitly linked with romantic love in writing is believed to be in his poem, Parliament of Fowls,
When did he write that?
around 1382. It was likely written to celebrate the anniversary of King Richard II's engagement to Anna Bohemia.
And what did it say?
There's a specific line. For this was on Saint Valentine's Day, when every fowl cometh there to cheese his make.
When every fowl comes there to choose his mate? Birds choosing their mates on Valentine's Day?
Exactly. That's the line.
Mm.
That association, made by Chaucer, seems to be the spark that really cemented February 14th as a day for lovers in the popular imagination.
That's incredible. One line in a poem basically defined the holiday for the next 600 plus years.
It seems so. And the idea caught on pretty quickly, at least in courtly and literary circles. We have evidence of actual Valentine notes not long after.
Like what?
Well, the earliest surviving Valentine note we know of is a little poem, a rondeau, written around 1415.
Who wrote it?
It was Charles, the Duke of Orleans. He wrote it to his wife while he was imprisoned in the Tower of London after the Battle of Agincourt.
That's actually quite romantic. And sad.
It is. And then, of course, you have Shakespeare mentioning it later on. Ophelia sings about Valentine's Day in Hamlet, though it's in a pretty tragic context.
Right. So Chaucer starts it, poets run with it. But how do we get from poems and courtly love to, Hallmark cards and heart-shaped boxes?
Okay, yeah, let's jump forward. We need to talk about 18th and 19th century England. That's where things really start to commercialize.
So what happened then?
In the 1700s, it became more of an established custom to exchange small gifts, flowers, sweets, and handwritten notes or cards, the first things actually called Valentines.
Okay, so formalized gift giving.
But the real explosion happened in the 19th century. That's when handmade cards started being replaced by mass-produced, factory-made ones.
Technology marches on.
And the biggest game changer, believe it or not, it was the Postal Service.
The mail.
In 1840, this guy Sir Rowland Hill introduced major postal reforms in Britain, including the penny black stamp. Suddenly, sending mail became super cheap.
Ah, the penny post.
Exactly. And that meant people could easily afford to mail their Valentines. Plus, crucially, they could send them anonymously.
Ooh, anonymity adds a whole new layer of intrigue, doesn't it?
It totally did. And the numbers just skyrocketed. One source says the number of Valentines mailed in the UK jumped to like 400,000. Just a year after the postal reforms, it became a huge trend.
400,000, that's massive for the 1840s.
Yeah, Charles Dickens even called the booming greeting card industry Cupid's manufactory.
Cupid's manufactory. I
Yeah,
love that. It perfectly captures how it shifted from personal notes to this industrial scale thing.
absolutely. It became about commerce as much as romance, and the U.S. wasn't far behind.
Oh, kicked it off stateside.
A woman named Esther Howland in Worcester, Massachusetts. Around 1847, she saw a fancy English Valentine and thought, I could do that, maybe even better.
Oh,
Right. She started making these elaborate cards with lace paper and ribbons and basically launched the American greeting card industry from her house.
wow. So we've got cheap postage and mass-produced cards. What else was needed for the modern Valentine's Day recipe?
Chocolate. Can't forget the chocolate.
Definitely not. Where does that come in?
That seems to be thanks to Cadbury, the British chocolate company. In 1868, they started selling chocolates in decorative, heart-shaped boxes. They called them fancy boxes.
And the rest is history. Heart-shaped boxes are still everywhere.
Pretty much. They really cemented chocolate as the Valentine's gift. Fast forward to today, and the numbers are just staggering.
How big are we talking?
In the U.S. alone, something like 190 million Valentines are sent each year, and that doesn't even count the little ones kids exchange at school
190 million.
and the total spending. A few years ago, it was estimated at over $18 billion.
$18 billion. Okay, that's officially a commercial powerhouse.
No kidding.
But before we dive into how the rest of the world deals with this juggernaut, you mentioned some places in Europe had different takes, even before the big commercial boom.
Yeah, it's good to remember it wasn't always about romance everywhere. Take Slovenia, for example.
What do they do?
There, Saint Valentine, or Zdravko, as he's sometimes known, is more seen as the saint of spring and good health. His day is traditionally when work begins in the fields and vineyards, when plants start to grow.
So more about nature and farming than love.
Primarily, yes. Their main day for love and romance was traditionally celebrated later, on St. Gregory's Day in March.
Interesting. Any other examples?
Well, there's a quaint tradition from Norfolk in England about Jack Valentine.
Jack Valentine. Who's he?
He was kind of like a Santa Claus figure for Valentine's Day. The tradition was that he'd knock on doors and leave little sweets or small gifts for children, then disappear. Much less about couples, more about a little treat for kids.
That's sweet. It shows how these traditions could be really local and varied before the global homogenization.
Exactly. Which brings us neatly into the next part. How does the rest of the world handle Valentine's Day now? It's this fascinating mix of adoption, adaptation, and sometimes outright rejection.
Right. Let's start with the Americas. We talked about the U.S., but what about Latin America?
It's often quite different there. Many countries celebrate something called Dia del Amor y la Amistad.
Day of love and friendship. So not just romantic love.
Exactly. They make a point of including friends in the celebration. In places like El Salvador or Colombia, they even play a game called Amigo Secreto Secret Friend.
Like Secret Santa, but for Valentine's.
Pretty much. It emphasizes affection for friends as well as partners. Brazil, though, does its own thing entirely.
Oh, yeah. What's Brazil's deal?
They celebrate Dia dos Namorados, Day of Lovers, but they do it on June 12th.
June? Why June?
Apparently, February is just too close to their massive carnival celebrations. They needed to space out the parties.
Huh. Fair enough. Okay, what about Asia? I hear things get pretty specific there, especially with gift giving.
Oh, definitely. Japan and South Korea have particularly interesting and commercially huge traditions. Spending is really high in places like South Korea and Singapore, too.
So how does it work in Japan and Korea?
It's kind of reversed initially. On February 14th, it's the women who give chocolates to men.
Women give to men.
And there are even different types of chocolate giving. There's giri choco, which is obligation chocolate.
Obligation child.
Yeah, like for male coworkers, bosses, casual acquaintances, it's more of a social custom. Then there's hanmei choco, which is true feeling chocolate, reserved for boyfriends, husbands, or someone they genuinely have romantic feelings for.
Wow, that's specific. You got to get the right chocolate for the right guy.
You really do. But then the men have to return the favor.
When?
Exactly 1 month later, on March 14th. That day is called White Day.
White Day.
Yep. And on White Day, men who received hanmei choco are expected to give gifts back to the women. Traditionally things that are white, like white chocolate, marshmallows, or sometimes lingerie or jewelry. And the gifts are supposed to be worth more than the chocolate they received.
Pressure's on the guys, then.
It is. And Korea adds another day to the cycle.
Seriously, what now?
April 14th is Black Day.
Black Day, what's that for?
That's for the singles. People who didn't receive any gifts on Valentine's Day or White Day get together with other single friends, often dressed in black, and go out to eat jjajangmyeon.
What's jjajangmyeon?
It's a popular Korean noodle dish with a thick black bean sauce. So they eat black noodles to kind of commiserate about being single. It's a bit self-deprecating, but also a social event.
That's amazing. A whole extra day just for singles.
Right. So you see this really intricate adoption and adaptation. But then on the flip side, you have places where Valentine's Day faces serious pushback.
Where's that happening?
India is a major example. Valentine's Day celebrations really took off there in the 1990s, especially among younger people. But it's faced strong opposition from some Hindu and Islamic traditionalist groups.
Why?
They often condemn it as cultural contamination from the West or as promoting immoral behavior. It gets quite political sometimes.
And didn't that lead to some really strange official counterproposals? I remember reading something.
Oh, you mean Cow Hug Day?
Yes, that was it.
Tell me about Cow Hug Day.
Okay, this was wild. In February 2023, the Animal Welfare Board of India actually put out an official appeal asking citizens to celebrate February 14th not as Valentine's Day, but as Cow Hug Day.
Seriously, pat a cow instead of your date.
That was the idea. They said it would bring emotional richness and counteract the dazzle of Western civilization.
I have no words. How did people react?
With widespread mockery, mostly. The internet had a field day with jokes about needing the cow's consent first. The whole thing was retracted pretty quickly, I bet. But wow, the fact that it was even proposed shows just how strongly some people feel about pushing back against this imported holiday.
It absolutely does, and you see similar tensions elsewhere. In Malaysia, Islamic authorities regularly warn Muslims against celebrating it.
And Saudi Arabia, I heard they used to be really strict.
Extremely strict. For years, the religious police there would actively ban the sale of anything red or heart-shaped around Valentine's Day. They saw it as promoting a Christian holiday and could even arrest people for celebrating publicly.
Has that changed?
It seems to have relaxed somewhat in recent years, but the official view is still that it's not an Islamic celebration. Non-Muslims might celebrate privately, but public displays are still frowned upon.
Okay. And even back in Europe, some places are trying to promote alternatives, right?
Yeah, it's not just opposition. Sometimes it's about promoting local traditions. Like in Finland and Estonia, February 14th is celebrated as Ystävänpäivä,
Which means?
literally Friends Day. So similar to the Latin American idea, it's about celebrating friends, not just romantic partners.
That's nice.
And Romania makes an effort to promote its own traditional Lover's Day, Dragobet, which falls later in February on the 24th. They position it as a more authentic alternative to what they see as the overly commercialized, imported Valentine's Day.
Okay, so wrapping this all up then, what should you, our listener, take away from this deep dive?
Well, I think the first thing is just how historically flimsy the foundations of Valentine's Day actually are.
Right. It's named after martyrs we know almost nothing about.
Its connection to romance seems to genuinely stem from Geoffrey Chaucer and medieval poetry, not ancient Rome or the saints themselves.
And its modern global form. That's really a product of 19th century business innovations, cheap postage, mass printing, and clever marketing by chocolate companies.
Exactly. So the story of February 14th today is maybe less about love and destiny and much more about, well, globalization and commerce.
Which leads us to that final thought, that kind of provocative idea to leave you with. The real drama of Valentine's Day today isn't really about whether you get a date or remember the flowers. It's this bigger cultural clash happening all over the world.
Yeah, you've got nations and cultural groups actively debating, adapting, banning, or even trying to replace this holiday that was essentially dreamed up by poets and made massive by printers.
And what does it really tell us when a government seriously proposes replacing romantic dinners with, hugging a cow?
It tells us this tradition, however manufactured it might seem, has become incredibly powerful. It forces every culture to confront questions about love, commerce, tradition, and foreign influence.
It really makes every society decide, how are we going to deal with Valentine's Day? How, or even if, are we going to celebrate love in the modern world?